Hey guys, welcome back to the Primed Fatherhood podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Condi, and this is episode 16. In the last episode, I left you saying that we were only a couple hours away from going to the hospital and having my wife induced to have a baby. And in this episode, I want to talk about that experience and share with you what I learned from this labor and delivery. We have answered the call. We are committed to a greater purpose.
We are fathers. Past achievements do not guarantee future success. We will prime ourselves often to navigate each new challenge.
We are capable, brave, and relentless.
We will remain undaunted.
All right, so I just want to share the story of the way that this labor and delivery went down and share with you some of the highlights and the low points and just kind of let you know what I was reminded of with this one that I had forgotten from the previous one. And hopefully this will help you guys to either remember the births of your children and remember how special it is and how intense the moment is. And for those of you who haven't had anyone yet, hopefully this will give you a little bit of insight into a little bit of what to expect. It definitely is just one experience, but it was a good one. So for us to have my wife induced, there had to be a good reason. The doctors will now induce them a week early before their due date if it's not the first baby and if everything is healthy. And the reason that we did that was because last time my wife went a week past her due date, was induced, and it caused an extra long recovery. She sustained some more tearing and just physical trauma that isn't necessary if it were to happen earlier. So this time around, we wanted to be proactive, and as long as the baby was healthy, we wanted to help her to have that delivery earlier so that she could recover better. And so that was the goal with this one. We went in a week early, which is really 2 weeks earlier than our last baby. So we went in at 1 o'clock in the morning. They gave her a dose of Cytotec, which is kind of the preliminary drug that helps to start the contractions, but it's not the most powerful one. And then we had to wait for a while. And that waiting is not too hard when it's 1 o'clock in the morning because you're drowsy and they tell you to kind of rest and everything. And the doctors are just coming in and out and the nurses are coming in and out and they're setting things up. And the goal is for the medicine to do its job through the night, and then come 6 or 7 in the morning, the doctor can come at a more normal work time and the labor can go through the morning. And so that's kind of the process. With this one, my wife Carla took the medicine and started to see contractions pretty quickly. Some people don't see it quite as fast as she does. And so by 3 or 4 in the morning, she was in quite a bit of pain. She was really starting to feel the contractions. When we had our first daughter, we had done birthing classes and we had done all sorts of practice and preparation for that. With the second one, we didn't feel the need to take the classes, but we had kind of tried to brush up on the different breathing techniques and how to use certain like pressure points at certain times. But when it came down to it, when she started to get close, intense contractions, I couldn't really remember where to do the pressure points. And so the nurse helped me with that. And then after a while, we got into a pretty good groove. And I was doing those pressure points and trying to really help to do the counter pressure, is what they call it, as the contractions would come on. And it's quite a workout. After that, probably like 4 in the morning, 3 or 4 in the morning, she was ready to have an epidural. And the first time around, she was on the fence about having an epidural. She just wasn't sure if it was worth the risk that she had heard about or if it was really needed. But when it came down to it, that time that she got induced, she was already partially in labor, and it really sped things up and made things really painful because it was going so fast. So she really needed the epidural with the first pregnancy. With this one, she had had a good experience with the epidural. She knew how much relief it brought her, and so she just wanted it as soon as it was available. And so we helped her get that, and goal number 1 of getting the epidural is just holding perfectly still while the anesthesiologist does the procedure. And so they had her kind of hunch over and lean on me, and I was just kind of praying that I could hold perfectly still and make sure that nothing went wrong and that I could keep her from flinching or moving. And Carla was just so brave and so disciplined. She was able to hold super still, even though she started to have a contraction through the middle of it. And once that was over, that was a huge relief for her because it started to take the edge off the pain. But it was also a big relief for me because, for one, we could tell the epidural was working well, which is one of the scarier parts of the labor and delivery. But 2, if I would have had a few more hours of doing the counter pressure and really trying to keep her calm and keep her breathing, it would have been very exhausting for me. I was glad that I work out and that I try to focus on stamina, because doing those counter pressure moves constantly for hours is quite a lot of exercise. And so once the epidural kicked in, then it was just a matter of us monitoring the baby's vitals and my wife's vitals and just kind of waiting. And everything progressed fairly well. She dilated well. The baby stayed pretty consistent. And by, I think it was like 6 in the morning, the doctor came in, they broke her water, and then it was game on. The baby started to really drop down to where they needed her to be, and Carla was able to really still feel what she needed to do. And I can remember, with the epidural, she still has pain, and part of what they do at our hospital is they don't go to the 100% painkiller level. They try to get it to 85% or so, which allows the woman to still feel some of the labor pain and still feel how they're pushing. And I think that that's a great way to go, because when it came time for Carla to really push and to really control the breathing, she was able to push very well to the extent that the doctor was telling her to slow down, because there was no reason to go as fast as she was pushing, which was impressive. But in that moment, there's a lot of emotion. I can remember just looking at her and looking at the team. I mean, there's 3 or 4 nurses around. There was our doctor, and then I was there, and and everyone was moving around doing their stuff, and I was just there to be Carla's support. She really loves to feel the physical touch, and that's one of her love languages. So I made sure to be holding her hand and her shoulder, to be holding her neck. And then when it came time to push, I would support her back and help her to kind of scrunch up, and there'd be a nurse on the other side, and I couldn't help but kind of have things go into slow motion during those times and just be amazed at the whole process, and really be amazed with Carla's ability to push through the pain and to think straight and still feel and know what she had to do. And you know, that really is like the summit of the whole experience is right in that moment. And I would find myself choking up and tearing up in seeing her do that, but then I'd snap out of it and I'd try to encourage her, and the culture that was in our hospital was the nurses were all really vocal and helpful in cheering the women on, and I think a lot of them had been athletes. I know Carla was a gymnast. She thrives on that kind of cheering, and so that was part of my role as well, was to cheer her on and to help her to control the breathing and the pushing. And then luckily they were able to get the umbilical cord in the right spot, and the baby was in the right spot, and so we had a nice smooth delivery. And that was a huge relief, because the first time around when we had our first daughter, it was not that way. The cord was wrapped around her neck and shoulder. It was being pinched off, and the baby's heart rate was just plummeting, and that was such a scary thing. I kind of had forgotten how scary that really was until I was in the situation again, just praying that it didn't happen again. And when it didn't, it was such a huge relief. But then I was just kind of blown away at the way that the labor happens. The baby comes out all at once, and then the doctor and nurse just kind of flop her onto mommy's stomach, and then the baby just looked so gray and purple, and it's so weird at first because they don't look alive, and when you think about it, they kind of aren't, right? If you're watching closely right then, the doctors and nurses are focused on clearing the baby's mouth and lungs out, getting them to cry and to breathe. And you're literally watching the first breath in that moment. And you're holding your breath for sure to make sure that the doctors and everyone knows what they're doing and they're being careful, but that also your baby is able to breathe and start to come to life. And of course, I believe that they're living way before that, but there's something really special about that moment where you watch that first breath. And then within just a couple of minutes of the nurses rubbing the baby and somewhat cleaning them and everything, you start to see all the color come into their body, and then they pull them over and measure them and weigh them and take more vital signs and things. And by that point, I don't really feel like I was crying. I can't remember for sure, but you just feel so much relief and I don't know. I felt a lot of calm at that point because I could see that the baby was healthy and that things were going well. I did definitely still kind of hold my breath for Carla because they need to get the bleeding stopped and they need to get her taken care of and do whatever stitches they needed to do and things like that. And once all of that has calmed down and then the baby is just laying there on mama, that is such a special time. And I love photography, and so I got to take a lot of time there and take photos, and the nurses were all very helpful in taking photos of us, and we got to have a little bit of calm at that point. And again, I just kind of stood back and was blown away at everything that I was feeling. I was feeling this excitement and this relief and this responsibility and just all of this whirlwind of emotion, and but more than anything, it was relief, because when you're there, you really feel pretty helpless and pretty lost, not being a doctor and not knowing exactly what to do, and definitely not knowing what to do if something were to go wrong. That's the main thing. And then having the baby and knowing that mom is okay is just such a huge relief. It really is a miracle that childbirth works the way that it does. And I'm extremely grateful for the modern medicine that we have, because it gives me that extra sense of security that I know that if something were to go wrong, there's great professionals and great experience there, and knowledge and equipment to help us to have the best chance possible. And I'm all about hedging our bets and giving ourselves the absolute best opportunity for success, whether it's something like this or whether it's in business or in protecting the family. I just always want to take every precaution that I can to make sure things turn out as good as possible. And so then at that point, there's lots of monitoring, lots of little tests. And one of the things that I forgot was just how, for the woman, the labor isn't over after the delivery. In fact, they give all women, from what I understand, the Pitocin medicine, which causes the contractions during the inducing period. They give that to them after the labor, also in order to cause more contractions to help the uterus to shrink back to normal size, but also to stop the bleeding. And that is quite painful for the woman, especially when they're breastfeeding. There's something about when they're breastfeeding, the hormones cause the contractions to come back. And so my wife and I both had forgotten that is another wave of pain and struggle, even after you've had the baby. And that happens for the next day or two, pretty intensely. And so that was one of the main things that I had forgotten from the first time. And we also learned that with each subsequent child, those pains get worse, and there's more just bleeding and things like that follow the delivery. And so we were kind of surprised with that, but it wasn't anything that she couldn't handle. Of course, there's lots of painkillers available, and two, it's part of it. And the good thing is that you have the reward of having the baby there as well. And so it was when that started to calm down that I really had time to think about what a miracle it was to have a healthy baby and to have a healthy wife who I now could see better what was going on. And so I got to say a lot of grateful prayers and really just enjoy the time. And it was, I don't know, it's such a spiritual experience for me to just think, wow, we brought another life into the world, and we have this next level of responsibility and opportunity, and we know that there's going to be inherent struggles and challenges that'll come with this new family member, but it's just such an amazing experience to feel that come in, and for me it's inspiring and it's motivating for me to want to step up and answer the call to do better. And I actually ended up thinking of the League of the Undaunted again, and it really does ring so true when I'm thinking of all of these things and feeling just all of these really intense emotions. I'm not an especially emotional guy, but it seems like when something like this happens, just your senses are so much more heightened. And so I thought of the League of the Undaunted quite a bit, and I kind of just want to repeat it here again and talk about how I felt those things in a new way with this. So in the League of the Undaunted, I started it by saying, I am part of the League of the Undaunted. A new fate has been forged. I have stepped over the line. I have answered the call. I am a father. I won't look back, let up, slow down, back away, or be still. My past is behind me. My present has purpose. My future is filled with glory. I'm finished with selfish spending, lazy living, poor planning, weak working, and corrupt conduct. I no longer have to be right, first, recognized, praised, regarded, or rewarded. I now listen with care, teach with patience, labor with purpose, and strive for self-control. My mission is clear, my focus is family, my lifeblood is love. I will continually strengthen, restrain, teach, and give myself to be prepared in this noble role. I won't give up, shut up, or let up until I've stayed up, stored up, and paid up for the lives of my family. I will lead whether or not they listen. I will protect whether or not they ask for it. I will provide whether or not they want me. I will remain undaunted. I am a father, and when my children are grown, they will know that I gave everything, met every challenge, and taught all I knew. Sitting there in the hospital and holding this brand new baby, just so tiny, in my hands, like literally could hold her whole body in both hands, and she was a healthy baby. They're just so little. I was thinking of the League of the Undaunted and thinking of how, really this is a new chapter and a new turning point, and that with every child it's an opportunity to step up and to be better and to be more focused and to provide better and protect better and to teach more and to be a better example. And there's just this wave of all of these thoughts and feelings of things that I need to do and be better at and be more focused on. And it can be overwhelming. It's a lot to take on and to feel, but at the same time, the love that you feel for this new person that you've brought into the world, to me, is so inspiring and motivating. And so I'm just extremely grateful for the experience, even though it is intense and scary and there's a lot of unknowns. I really do get a lot of excitement and motivation and inspiration out of experiencing it. And then the work begins, and that's kind of the hard part with having a newborn. If the woman is trying to breastfeed, that can be a really challenging and frustrating thing for everyone, because it's painful, and there's a lot of pressure on the mom to get the baby to breastfeed, because you want them to have all of those nutritional benefits and to have that connection and to feel it. And it's kind of a rite of passage for the women to be able to breastfeed well. And so there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress there, but it's also, that's what really cuts into the sleep and makes the schedule really hard, is the fact that you want to breastfeed every chance that you can get that baby awake. And the baby's usually pretty exhausted and wants to sleep for the first few days. And so that is a lot of work there. And I just try to be as supportive as I can and be as attentive and present as I can through that, because I know I can't do much to help. I can kind of listen to the lactation specialists and listen to the nurses and try to like keep an eye out for body position and things to help, but really it's up to mom and baby to figure it out. And so I just try to make everything else as easy as possible. But having a newborn is it's a lot of work, and no one thing is too hard, but it is difficult because the mom is in pain and having to recover from this traumatic experience. You're not getting a whole lot of sleep because you're trying to get that baby fed every couple of hours and keep the baby comfortable and sleeping and healthy and also recovering. They're usually pretty banged up when they come out as well. And so it's just kind of a test of endurance. And the whole first week is. And now we're on day 8, I think. And really, my wife is still on the crazy sleep schedule. She's kind of taking the brunt of it so that I can work and help with our 3-year-old. But I still am trying to be available to help whenever possible, in the middle of the night as well as during the day. I just want her to feel supported and feel like I can handle everything else, so she can focus on just hanging in there with the baby, getting her fed at the right time, slowly getting her transition to actually sleeping at night and then being awake in the day, and then making sure that the breastfeeding goes well. And so far it has. We're extremely grateful that it has gone well, and we're extremely grateful for our healthy baby. She was high on the bilirubin levels, so we did have to bring the Billy Lights home to help to cut back on the jaundice, but that's really not a big deal. It happened with our first as well, and it's something that's totally treatable and doable. And so we're grateful that was all that we had to deal with. I think the main thing that I learned this time around was just that it doesn't necessarily get easier, and you do forget a lot of the pain and the struggle as time goes on. And that's great, because you don't necessarily need to remember all of that. But when it comes down to it, you do just need to focus on staying engaged and figuring out how to offer relief to mom and baby as much as you can. And to just try to be as engaged and willing to help as possible. One of the things that really is a big concern is sleep, and having a newborn means that your sleep schedule is weird. If if the mom is sleeping when the baby is sleeping, then they can handle it, because the babies do sleep a lot. But what happens is the mom is tempted to just do work, like try to clean up a little bit or cook or do whatever they're feeling like they need to do when the baby's sleeping. And so my job has been to try to do as much of the housework and cooking and things like that, to try to prevent her from feeling like she has to do too much so that she can get the rest that she needs. And for me, for those first few days, I was sleeping as little as she was, and I'm normally one who tracks my sleep almost every day. I wear the Garmin watch to bed so that I can get the sleep data and I can be as productive as possible. I try to look at my energy levels throughout the day and take into account what I'm eating and what I'm doing and when I'm going to bed and when I'm waking up, so that I can perform to my best, so that I can work 2 jobs and be an engaged dad and still have energy to do the work that I need and all of that. But when it comes to a baby, I am happy to let that go out the window for one main reason. And the main reason is I know that it's just a short season. It really isn't going to last forever. And 2, people can survive on no sleep or very little sleep for quite a while without any major detriment. And when it comes down to it, having a newborn, is worth it. It's worth the little sleep, and especially because it's not going to be forever that you're going to have to deal with that. And I know that some people have babies who cry all night, or that can't keep their milk down or whatever. And for those guys, Carla and I haven't dealt with that to an extreme. But I do know that there's lots of things out there to help. And maybe if we need to, down the road with Prime Fatherhood, we can find some of those people who have dealt with that and find those tips that will help with that as well. But for me, I hear a lot of people saying, having a newborn would be such a drag. I like my sleep too much and all of that. And when it comes down to in the moment, I'm excited to spend the time with the newborn, even if they're crying. I know that they're not crying because they're being ornery or they're being, spiteful the way that a 3-year-old could be. They're just crying because they don't have any other response. And so it doesn't really bother me as much that way. It just means that I have to figure out, do I need to change their diaper to make them more comfortable? Are they having gas pains? Do I need to burp them? Are they hungry? It's kind of simple once you get into the rhythm. But I just look at it as a season that will pass, and that the sleep deprivation that you do experience is not permanent. And if you remember that, then it makes you more willing to go with only 4 hours of sleep for a couple weeks, and then hopefully it'll start to improve and get better. And if not, then you need to just find a way to make it better and find some help so that you can get the sleep. But really, the whole experience of having a newborn is so special. It's amazing that the baby can just be so small, and that you can think that this baby is going to turn into a kid who you're going to enjoy and play with and teach and watch them get hurt and experience life, and then grow into an adult and hopefully be productive and contribute to your family and your community. And it's just a crazy and special thing. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to take part in this, and I'm so grateful for the examples that we have around us that help us to be better parents, and I'm extremely grateful for my wife. She is so dang tough and faithful and diligent, and it's just really cool that going through an experience like that, watching them go through all that pain and just feeling like you wish you could take it for them is so good for the relationship. It really does make you want to serve them more, makes you feel more love for them, makes them feel more for you, as long as you stay engaged and you stay helpful. And it's really awesome for the relationship. And so I just wanted to give you guys this update on how things went. We've got a healthy baby here. We're excited, and we're so grateful for the way that it turned out. As difficult as it is, it's just miraculous as well. So I will just leave it at that. I hope that sharing this experience helps someone out to feel a little more prepared, and to recognize that with the pain and the fear comes this amazing and special spiritual and loving experience, and that it's the start of an amazing new chapter. And so you just have to take the good with the bad and roll with the punches and be there. And so if you know of anyone who is going to be a first-time dad, please share this with them. For those of you who are experienced dads, I'd love to hear more about your experiences with labor and delivery. I think that if guys went in more prepared, even a lot more prepared than I was this time, they can be so helpful and comforting and resourceful during the labor and delivery process. And I'd like to help people with that. So if you want to connect with more engaged fathers and tell your stories and hear their stories and get advice and give advice, please join the Primed Fatherhood Facebook group. It's a private group. We just want fathers there where we can talk without judgment and without any restraint about all aspects of fatherhood. It's not just about parenting or birth. We want to talk about all aspects of life. So career, leadership, family, your interests, how you take time to recreate, all of that kind of stuff we want to cover there. So please join us there. Please leave us a review wherever you're listening to the podcast. And please subscribe. And I hope you look forward to the next couple episodes. I've got some professional athletes on deck, as well as an ex-CIA agent and a few other friends. So we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up for the podcast. And since it's December now, happy holidays. And remember to stay primed.